My name is Clara. I am 38 years old. And if you had told me 15 years ago that I would one day be sitting here, telling the story of how my marriage fell apart, I would have laughed. Back then, I believed in forever. I believed in Michael. I first met Michael, who is now 42, when I was just 22 years old. I was working as a junior assistant at a small publishing company. The kind of job that didn't pay much but gave me a taste of independence. One rainy evening, Michael walked in, drenched from head to toe, carrying a beaten-up leather briefcase that looked older than him. He wanted to pitch a business plan to one of the editors, but nobody would listen. People brushed him off like he was a nuisance. But I remember looking at him. His clothes were cheap, his shoes scuffed, but there was fire in his eyes. He didn't look like a failure. He looked like a man who was fighting to be seen. After everyone left, I stayed behind. I sat with him, going through his notes, retyping his messy proposal, fixing the spelling errors, tightening the arguments. We worked under buzzing fluorescent lights until nearly midnight. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of everything. The first step of a love story that would shape the rest of my life. 2 years later, we were married. I was 24 years old, walking down the aisle in a second-hand wedding dress that my aunt had altered for me. Michael held my hands at the altar, whispering, "One day I'll give you the world." I believed him with all my heart. We didn't have much back then. A tiny apartment with peeling wallpaper and a drafty window. But it was ours. We didn't care about money. We cared about dreams. The early years were hard. Michael struggled to keep his business alive, and I worked 2 jobs just to make sure we had food on the table. During the day, I typed up contracts for him, and at night, after putting dinner on the table, I balanced his books and chased down invoices. We often went to bed exhausted, but we went to bed together, holding hands, whispering promises of better days. And slowly, things began to change. 1 client turned into 2, then 5, then 10. Michael was charming when he wanted to be. And soon, deals were being signed. Money was coming in, and his reputation was growing. By the time I was in my early 30s, he was a respected businessman. We had moved out of our tiny apartment and into a beautiful suburban home. 2 years later, it was a mansion. The kind of mansion I once saw only in movies. Somewhere along the way, we had our 2 children. Ethan, now 10, with his endless questions and brilliant mind, and Lily, now 7, with her gentle spirit and soft laugh that could melt any bad day away. They were my pride, my joy, the light of my life. On the outside, we were the perfect family. We hosted dinners, went on vacations, wore matching outfits for Christmas cards. People envied us. They saw the cars, the house, the business, and they said, "Clara, you're so lucky." But luck had nothing to do with it. What they didn't see were the sacrifices. They didn't see the nights I stayed up alone, running numbers. They didn't see me skipping meals so we could save. They didn't see me holding Michael's hand when he wanted to give up. I poured myself into him, into us, into building the dream. And then, I started to see the cracks. Michael came home later and later. He stopped talking to me about his business, brushing me off when I asked questions. His phone was always face down, password protected. At first, I told myself it was stress, that success was a heavy burden. But then I started noticing things. Invoices that didn't add up. Money that disappeared into accounts I didn't recognize. Tax reports that looked suspiciously altered. When I tried to confront him, his tone was sharp, dismissive. "Clara, stop snooping. You wouldn't understand. This is business." Those words stung. I wanted to scream, "I've been with you since the beginning. I built this with you." But I swallowed my pride. I convinced myself to be patient, to trust him. And then came the night that shattered me, and later. He stopped talking to me about his business, brushing me off when I asked questions. His phone was always face down, password protected. At first, I told myself it was stress, that success was a heavy burden. But then I started noticing things. Invoices that didn't add up. Money that disappeared into accounts I didn't recognize. Tax reports that looked suspiciously altered. When I tried to confront him, his tone was sharp, dismissive. "Clara, stop snooping. You wouldn't understand. This is business." Those words stung. I wanted to scream, "I've been with you since the beginning. I built this with you." But I swallowed my pride. I convinced myself to be patient, to trust him. And then came the night that shattered me. It was late. Michael came home, tossed his clothes on the floor, and went straight to the shower. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, and for once I picked it up. My hands were shaking as I opened the messages. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. "I can't wait to see you again. Last night was perfect. When will you finally leave her?" My chest tightened, my vision blurred. Message after message, months of conversations, pictures, promises. My husband wasn't just unfaithful. He was building a life with someone else. When he came out of the shower, I was sitting there with his phone in my hands, tears streaming down my face. "How could you, Michael?" After everything, he didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. Instead, he looked me in the eyes with a coldness I didn't recognize. "Clara, you've become boring. You're just a mother now. She makes me feel alive." My whole world cracked in that moment. 14 years, 2 children, sleepless nights, sacrifices he never saw. And all I was to him was boring. The divorce came fast. Years earlier, out of blind love, I had signed a prenuptial agreement. Back then, I thought it was just a formality, proof that I wasn't after his money. Now it became his weapon. At the table, his lawyer slid the papers forward, and Michael leaned back with a smirk. "You'll walk away with nothing, Clara. Nothing." He thought he had won. He thought I was broken. But what he didn't know was that I hadn't walked away with nothing. I walked away with Ethan and Lily. And more importantly, I walked away with something far more dangerous. His secrets. Every shady invoice. Every fake tax filing. Every offshore account he thought nobody knew about. I knew it all, because I had been there from the very beginning. And one day I would use it. If you want to see how Clara's heartbreak transforms into power, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because part 2 is where the real story begins.